Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of boards, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video review series where we take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website Roll20.net. With this video, I'll be reviewing the layer book, Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs, designed by Kobold Press for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and adapted to Roll20. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. So I previously reviewed Tome of Beasts 2 Lairs, actually earlier this year, and I think I reviewed the original Book of Lairs as well. I'd have to actually go back a couple years for that one. But what these are, Kobold Press has produced probably one of their most successful products for 5th edition, which is the Tome of Beasts, which is just a really big, awesome, chunky monster manual supplement for 5e. They've done 3 of them now. The 3rd one has just released, and to complement each of these giant, awesome monster books, they have these layer books. So a layer, I feel like I have to define this every time so that we're all on the same page, is a smaller than an adventure, but larger than a single encounter. It's basically a dungeon where monsters reside. And it might include some adventure hooks or reasons to go there. And it's basically just a self-contained kind of mini adventure that's all centered around this one singular location, which is the lair. So it's a book of lairs that draw from specifically the monsters in Tome of Beasts 3. You do not need to have Tome of Beasts 3 to run these lairs. All of the monsters that are included in this layer book that are featured here are actually included in this version, because you can purchase them separately. You can just purchase the Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs for $29.99 currently at the Roll20 marketplace, or you can also grab the complete bundle, which I should have had this tab open already, which includes the Tome of Beasts 3 and the Lairs. So Tome of Beasts 3, again, just so we're all on the same page with this, is going to add all of those monsters into your Roll20 compendium, meaning you can head on over to the information section here and grab whatever monsters included, and then drag them into your game no matter which campaign game you're at. It's very, very helpful and nice to have those stat blocks, tokens, and art pieces all ready to go and immediately. But if you really just want to run these individual dungeons, you could just purchase the layer book. And I'm going to do a review specifically on this Lairs because it's kind of hard for me just to review a monster book when we're looking at the Roll20 screen. Although I do think, I will say, I've really enjoyed all of the Tome of Beasts stuff. I think there's some of the best monster manual content you can get for 5e. So and frankly, I'm always very impressed with Kobold Press's products and material in general. So consider that a pretty good endorsement. But I will say, buying something that's just going to add content into your compendium for Roll20 is not nearly as useful or as exciting as buying things that actually give you stuff that you can actively, easily create a campaign from, which are going to be the maps and the written content in the journal, which is what the Lairs gives you. So what we're looking at right now is actually something I kind of whipped up, because when you purchase this Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs module, you get 23, I'll actually go back to the marketplace website, all 23 of these Lairs. Now, for those of you that watched my review or have purchased or checked out the Tome of Beasts 2 Lairs, that one included, I believe it was 14 or 15 Lairs. So we get a huge increase to just the amount of content. Now, it's pricier, I believe. Tome of Beasts 2 Lairs launched at $19.99, and this one, $29.99, is starting to get up there, more like a full campaign. But 24 Lairs, and these are full maps with tokens, dynamic lighting, everything, is very, very cool and awesome. It also includes over 100 monster stat blocks, which include all of the tokens and creatures you would need. Anytime a creature is mentioned in one of these layer adventures, that's already given to you in in your journal. Some of them are from Tome of Beasts 3, but not all of them. In fact, most of them are just going to be from the standard rules document, which includes most of the creatures from the monster manual that aren't considered like super proprietary by Wizards of the Coast. So you get a lot of like your more generic stat blocks, for example. But if you notice, we still get token art for all of those, which is something that has dinged Kobold Press in the past. and with Roll20 not being able to provide that token art because it wasn't using the official art from the Monster Manual. But if you look here, and I checked out every single one of these, I believe maybe one is missing. But otherwise, we actually get token art for all of these generics, which is very, very helpful and adds to the immersiveness whenever you're trying to run a campaign for your Roll20. You definitely want to have that token art available for all of your creatures. And then you have maybe average between 1 and 5 creatures that are brand new from the Tome of Beasts 3, and I believe I wrote down the number. So over 100 total stat blocks, and about over 40 of them, so maybe less than half, fewer than half, are new, completely new ones from Tome of Beasts 3. I don't know what the total number of new creatures is from Tome of Beasts 3. I should have probably looked at that first, but there's probably a lot. Now, there's so much content here in terms of the number of layers. I mean, 20 plus is going to be way too much to go through for the purpose of this review, so instead we're going to highlight and look at a couple of them. But the reason you're looking at a little splash page here is because I actually made this myself. So when you purchase these, you don't actually purchase them as a campaign. Instead, you purchase them as add-ons that can be individually added to any campaign. I won't walk you through how to do that. Hopefully you know how to do that, but the how-tos are out there very easily. When you create a game, there's just a drop-down menu for content add-ons, and you've got a huge drop-down depending on what all you purchased. You can add in there, and then it will easily add basically these little subheadings that you see on my screen on the journals that say Proud Heart's Predator Problem, Flight of the Dromedaries, Furor in the Farmyard, Salvage at Lonely Cove. All of those are individual, those are all the layers, individual add-on layers, and they're very well organized where it just adds them under just 2 additional subheadings, which is the adventure and the bestiary. And the adventure itself includes, usually there's one grouping for the adventure hook, one for the dungeon, and one for the conclusion, and then any other maybe interesting other subheadings, like maybe a certain important NPC information or a certain puzzle or something might be mentioned as a separate journal entry, and then the entire bestiary section is helpful to have separately. So you can add them individually, which means for the purposes of this, that's great for you all, and was a little trickier for me, because what I did is I literally created a new campaign, added all 24 of these adventures to that campaign. So this is an empty campaign with nothing but those adventures being added to it. And then I just uploaded an image of Tome of Beasts, the cover image of Tome of Beasts Lair, and slapped it on here as a splash page. So just so there's no confusion here, this is not what you're going to see when you purchase this thing. It's not going to, you're not going to create a campaign based on this. Instead, you can do what I do and just make a separate campaign and then add them all to it. But more likely what you're going to do is you've already got a campaign ongoing and you just want to be able to drop these layers into your campaign as a little side adventure. I think that's what probably 75% of us are going to be using these for, is, hey, I've got an ongoing story. You know, you might use them for occasional one-shot or something also, but you've got your ongoing story and you just want to be able to drop these in as a self-contained dungeon side quest. And I think that's a great way to use them, and you'll just end up with, you know, just the one map is included in your Roll20 map bar, and then you've got that one section here. So just so there's no confusion there, you won't see all of these, you'll just see whichever one you ended up adding. I added them all, I looked at them all, did all that work for you, and I'm going to go ahead and say these are fantastic. These are really, really great. Once again, I think Kobold Press did an awesome job coming up with a variety of themes, of locations, of ideas, using some really fun new creature ideas. Just to kind of rattle off a montage, you can battle a possessed bakery drake in her bakery shop. You can explore a haunted music hall. You can eliminate pesky fae from a rainforest enclave. You can thwart an alliance of bilge goblins, which are these awesome, like, kind of merfolk type goblins that are around water. In Sahuagin, at an occupied lighthouse. You can retrieve a rare herb from a guarded sanctuary of a globe-trotting druid. You can face down an obsessive lord and his menagerie of monstrous beasts. The variety of locations includes underwater shipwrecks, active volcanoes, desert valleys, the aforementioned bakery. There's also a tailor shop, which is a big rakshasa, like den of cult and debauchery. It's really, really awesome variety of locations and things. And I'm going to focus on a few of these to really showcase you the maps and the adventure quality and everything. Starting with, I think I'm going to break down 4 of my favorites. And the first one we're going to look at is Flight of the Dromedaries, which is a rare desert one. I think it might actually be the only one that really has a desert, specifically a desert location. Now, technically, I think these probably all are tied to Midgard, which is Kobold Press's adventure location, but you can, again, they're designed where you can kind of drop in anywhere. They're supposed to be more setting agnostic, but obviously they have, certain biomes, like obviously the rainforest one and the desert one, so there's those kind of limitations. But look at the gorgeous, gorgeous map quality of this desert. Like the texturing, the detail, oh my goodness. Like the map quality is going to win me over so many times, especially when it comes to Roll20 reviews. And I am incredibly impressed with the level of map quality. I'm sorry, I don't know who the artist is on these maps. I don't. It doesn't have the credit information because these were all add-ons instead of a campaign. But these are just extremely gorgeous, gorgeous map designs. This particular adventure, you're escorting a bunch of camels through a desert region, and a dragon flies overhead, pays no attention to you, it just flies, which is, I think, just a cool, random sighting, which is, they give you the adult blue dragon stat block, even though it's not in this. It's a level 2 adventure, by the way. And the camels, of course, freak out and run, and the, frightened presence affects everybody. And then the player's job are to hunt down the ones that fled. And you just get a nice little balance of different traps and dangers. There's sand pit traps. There's a vultures with a giant vulture that swoops down. There's like a gem you can pry out of a statue. It frees a bunch of giant wasps. The sands themselves can like kind of scorch you a little bit. And then the big boss fight are these desert slimes, which is the big marquee creature from Tome of Beasts 3. Most of these layers, which is true of all 3 of the trilogy of Tome of Beasts layer books we've had now, tend to basically focus on one marquee creature, but not all of them. Sometimes they might focus certain ones as different kinds of minions, or use just multiple kinds of creatures that would belong to a certain biome. Like there's a lot of focus on underwater creatures, for example. I think there's like 3 different adventures that have to do with water creatures. But a lot of them do have that as like their signature big boss fight, as the cool new creature from Tome of Beasts 3, and something your players haven't quite seen yet. So I was really impressed with this one as a level 2 adventure. The desert theme was a lot different. I like the having to track down these camels and bring them back, but it has a little bit of a almost mini open world feel to it, where you can kind of wander around and do different things until you reach your end. And the size you get here, it's considered an 8 room. That's a pretty good size for a nice little 1 session dungeon crawl. And the size of the map feels perfect. Everything's 5 foot square. We've got the dynamic lighting is all set in place, and everything's just, it works so well. So this is one of my favorite ones by far. And then I'm going to look at Automated Banditry, which is kind of just your classic bandits in a cave map, but made so much cooler because of the backstory here, which is a bunch of literally like ex-college students have basically dropped out of this university program that was all about making constructs and engineering. And they stole a bunch, and then they've also got they can also build some of these constructs, and they're trying to just pay off their student debts, and have resorted to banditry to get that done. So I really like the twist that it's a bandit cave, but it's full of a lot of automatons and new ones as well. So the bestiary is full of clockwork pugilist, animated instruments, and a clockwork armadillo. And it uses some ones we've seen before, like the flying sword, and animated armor is one we've seen before. I love the animated instruments, though, are so much fun, and those are used in the music hall as well. Just literally like just this, and they can form like a string quartet and do all these different moves, and things are really fun. But this one also has some, and just again, fantastic map art all around. You really get a feel for the fact this is like the outside areas you're going in here, and then just the little torch work, the lighting, like, oh my goodness, it's so good. And this one has a nice social component because there's 2 of them that are like not totally on board with the plan of being bandits basically and robbing from people. They can easily be talked down. But then the third one is a lot more militant, and it's kind of gone down the dark side, and he's willing to more fight it out. And there's an interesting social component with this one that I like a lot. But just the twist with all the automatons and things is really fun and interesting for a low level dungeon. This one is level 3, by the way. I should mention, I meant to do this at the beginning, these the total layers range from level 1 to level 12, which I will mention is a little disappointing because it feels like, I get that most D&D is played at those levels. I totally get that. I'm sure all the surveys have been done. Everybody's figured out. Most people play, on the tier 1 and tier 2 levels. I think that's when D&D is 5th edition is the most perfectly balanced, and that's just where most tiers of play lie. And there's not a lot of content for after that. Well, but if you're not making a lot of content, it's just, it exacerbates the problem. There's not enough content. So I was really disappointed to see there wasn't any good, fun, high-level content. And unlike Tome of Beasts 2, which had fewer layers, but did go up to level 15 at least, did a better job of showcasing some higher level threats. And there are, I would expect, higher level threats in that book. So it was a bummer that we had so many more layers in Tome of Beasts 3, and yet it does not include the full gamut of Tier 3 and Tier 4 play, with the highest one only being level 12. So that is kind of a bummer. But for lower level play, you're definitely going to get some good stuff here. Moving on to Incident at Rackwater. This is one of the water-themed adventures. I believe it is, yeah, Rackwater Cove. And this is a lighthouse adventure that features an alliance between bilge goblins, which are these, again, really fun kind of merfolk, underwater swim speed goblins. Some really great art. I mean, they look exactly like merfolk goblins, right? And they're having an alliance with Sawagan, and they've basically taken over this lighthouse. It also features this Gulkin, which is this really funny kind of Aarakocra version of a seagull, or almost like one of those pterosaur creatures from Tomb of Annihilation. They have a really great ability that doesn't feel very strong on paper, but they can, once basically, it recharges on a short rest, they can exhale a lungful of air in a 15-foot cone, and it forces everybody to make a DC 11 strength save or be pushed up to 15 feet away. Now, I know a lot of DMs are rubbing their hands anxiously going, oh, are you kidding me? A flying creature who can, in a 15-foot cone, force a save or push people 15 feet away? Sounds like you can wreak all kinds of havoc with different environmental challenges, and I agree. It's like an awesome creature, especially a minion creature, because they can just keep on employing those things. That sounds like a lot of fun. Also has a swim speed and can hold their breath, so they don't even mind getting knocked into the water. So really fun idea creature in there. The lighthouse, however, is only half the dungeon, and then you go into the depths underneath, which involves so it's like a 2-part dungeon crawl, right? You've got the lighthouse up here, which is a solid 7 rooms. Then you've got another, what is it, like 10? Oh, it starts over, doesn't it? So it's got its own 10 rooms down here full of underwater creatures as you can investigate the lower section of the lighthouse, which involves like going under underwater tunnels and fighting all these different creatures. They even just use like, hey, there's water basilisks in here you can battle. So again, just a really cool idea for a dungeon that looks really nice and lovely. It can be kind of tricky to do, underwater maps as 2D dungeon crawls, and I think this looks very well done, and you can tell like the areas that are underwater and the areas that just have water and all that, and then the shoreline. Like, what a cool looking map it is. And look at the number of creatures featured in this one, like a huge stacked creature feature. I will also say these layers definitely tend more towards the video game like good old fashioned monster crawl, hack and slash, I guess is the term I'm looking for, where it's a lot of focusing on creatures. You won't find a lot of, for example, puzzly dungeons or social scenes or heists or stealthy things necessarily. From what I can tell, every single one that I looked at was meant to be a fairly straightforward dungeon crawl. Now that may disappoint some of you, and maybe disappointed me a little bit, because with this amount of layers, I think there could have been maybe a little bit more variety in how you approach each dungeon. So I guess that could have helped a little bit, and there's maybe some of them have a little more precursor. Some of them do have a lot more story than others. Like I think that one about the bandits was a pretty strong one in terms of story. Others are just very straightforward. It's like, hey, this place is full of monsters, go clean them out. But I also think that for drop-in layers, kind of what you're looking for in a way. Like, it would be nice if you told a little bit of a story within this dungeon, like there was somebody to rescue and they had, a thing, or a villain had a motivation. Like, that would be good, but we're not looking for those multi-chain, story things. That's what our full campaign is for, and other sequences, although it does try to tie some of these together. I believe the only one that I really noticed, and I may have missed some, was that this one could lead to another one, which was... which one was this? Shoot, no, I think it was, had a weird name. The Salons of Mother Celeste. I think that was it, which is a weird name for the shipwreck one. So that one could lead you to this one, because this is a shipwreck caused from the fact that the lighthouse is operated by a bunch of monsters now. And this is a great example. Again, the water ones are so cool. This is one of the higher level ones, I believe. What is this one? I didn't write it down. Let's see what it says. 8th level. So this is an upside down shipwreck, a bit of a Poseidon adventure in reverse as you try to make your way inside and basically battle your way to the top of the ship, if that makes sense, because it's been looked over, and a lot of underwater creatures in there. It's just full of those freaking bilge goblins, which I love. The new Rackwater Wraiths, I believe these are called. You know, consist of all those detritus and garbage from the coral and everything. And the very bottom, it is, I think the reason it's called this is because it's a brine hag who's like currently servicing a sea hag. She's got like this really twisted, like, I don't know, beauty parlor or something that's at the very bottom here that players can deal with. So that's been, I think it's a really fun, interesting dungeon design. Another one I want to look at is called the Green Sanctum. This is a druid who is away but has created this lovely sanctuary for a bunch of you know, special plants and creatures that they've found. They have since died, and then I like the adventure hook here is, hey, you have to retrieve like a special plant held by the ice golem because it's just got this plant inside of it, and that's just your whole motivation is to get this plant from this druid sanctuary. And as you get here, you realize that druid's not home and was actually killed while off on an adventure, and you just have to deal with this guarded sanctuary full of a bunch of creatures. Got a really cool design though, with all these long creepy hallways and these weird circular rooms. It feels kind of like a laboratory in a lot of interesting ways. And then I absolutely love this ice golem. It was a really excellent a really cool art piece here, and then a great ability where it can trap people inside of its chest cavity. You can free them by like liquefying it, causing fire damage, and then you can take an action to like pull them out, and it becomes just like really cold damage at that point. But they can also grab people, grapple them, and like shove them into that ice chamber and just like flash freeze them. Like, what a cool idea for a creature stat block, and it basically serves as the boss of this dungeon, but your whole goal is to try to just free this thing out of it. And you can actually find in a different part of the dungeon the way to like deactivate it through like secret doors, and there's some interesting like secrets to discover, and a good showcase of a lot of cool creatures from Tome of Beasts 3, including this ice willow and an alpine creeper. Really neat ideas for this one as a druid sanctuary. That is a level 7 adventure, by the way. And then the last one I want to check out for your convenience is this Twisted Sanctuary. This is the one I mentioned briefly at the intro. That is the tailor shop turned Rakshasa lair. And it's just a huge, cool dungeon that basically just starts out as you inside of a shop, and then quickly realizing things are getting twisted as you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this dungeon. It literally starts off with just, hey, you know, we're investigating some stuff, and then you get to the back room, you go down these stairs, there's a huge like fire trap here, there's filled with cultists. These are different kind of cultist stat blocks, I believe, though. Apostles and atavists. I'm not sure how to do that one. There are some cult fanatics and cultists, imps, and it really shows off. Apparently with Tome of Beasts 3 added a bunch of Rakshasa variants, a Myrmidon, Pustakam, Servitor, and a Slayer, which serves as one of the end bosses. And it's a cool design for having this layer that looks really neat and opulent. This demonic cult that it just keeps getting more interesting as you go, basically. It has this cool like waterway, there's a secret passage, you can actually like get the jump on the boss at the end. I really like this design a lot. This is a level this is the 10th level adventure, and these are pretty good sized maps and layers. Like I mentioned, you know, that the layers are generally pretty small and self-contained, but the word small, I mean, you could stretch that out to be a 15 or 16 room dungeon. I don't know, I guess we can look at the actual physical size of some of these maps and see, what is this, 26 by 38 is pretty darn big. Let's see if I can find one that's a little, might be some of the bigger ones. 26 by 30, okay, maybe they're all pretty standard size then. Oh, that's funny. I wonder if they're all the same size. Maybe some of them are smaller. 26 by 38. I'm gonna discover this just while doing it live. Yep. All right. Well, maybe they're all 26 by 38. Fascinating. Maybe that was the whole thing about this job, basically. Now, some of these, I will say, not all of them are the cool variety that I've seen. I'm kind of picking and choosing my favorites. Some of them are a little more boring. One of them is just a very simple cave with a certain kind of cat creature inside. Another is just an ogre's keep full of a bunch of, you know, generic goblin ogre type creatures. So they're not all quite like exciting winners like the ones I've played out, but most of them are, and they're all, for the most part, pretty cool ideas and give you a lot of a fun variety of creatures to fight, locations to visit, and just good old-fashioned hack and slash dungeon crawl, which I really think if there's a place for that, it's absolutely in a book of layers that you want to be able to drop in and can add to any campaign. Now, the only flip side of that is you have to purchase them all bulk, right? That's still kind of a bummer. So you can purchase Tomb of Beasts 3 Lair separately from the complete bundle at least, but you're still going to have to put down this price, $29.99 at launch, and just purchase all of them, even if you only want to use one of them. And that sucks. That's obviously probably not worth your time if you're really only going to use one of them, which is why I'm telling you most of them are pretty damn good. And I'm hoping, if you're using Roll20 long term, and you can find a way to use a lot of these adventures in really fun ways. There's some cool rainforest adventures. Like I said, there was a desert, there's an active volcano, there's the urban ones with the bakery, and the one we're looking at right now, the tailor's house. There's a lord's mansion that's been cleaned out and set up like a freaking gladiatorial arena. I'll show you this one. Look at the way it's got this like literally arena in the middle of the dungeon with portcullis and then like a little viewing gallery. Like you can do all kinds of fun stuff with that. Even if you're not going to run this adventure itself, like you don't have to run these adventures. You can just buy these for the maps, and I would recommend that. Now you do get these creatures that go with it, which is very handy. If you own Tome of Beasts 3 or obviously any other monster creature, you can just pull them directly from the compendium, so that'll work just fine as well. But I can find a lot of cool ideas for these adventures. But really, only if you're going to use at least a couple of these is it probably worth your time. But I would imagine most DMs who are running, adventures in Roll20 over a decent amount of time are going to find a use for a lot of these adventures and can take good advantage of Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs. Let's go over my pros and cons for Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs. The pro is that there are 23 layers ranging from level 1 to 12, featuring a wide variety of locations and themes. Pro, each layer features a full color map, room descriptions, adventure hooks, NPC tokens, and dynamic lighting. Everything is set up. I believe I did find one problem, however. I will share this with you. This very first level 1 map, no tokens. I don't know if that's just a bug or an error or what the heck's going on, but when I first saw that, I was like, wait a minute, the maps don't have tokens. And all the rest of them did. This is the only one I found that actually has this problem. It's a really... I'm not a big fan of this one either. It's a level 1 farming mission where you're trying to figure out what the monster is. The monster is this creature that can literally, like, it's like a wolf who can literally take on sheep's clothing, like, can shapeshift. And it requires like a lot of barnyard animals being everywhere, and you doing a lot of investigative work. This is probably the least like hack and slash dungeon crawler of them all, actually. And for that reason, it feels very difficult to actually run in Roll20. But still, we probably should have had some tokens on there. Pro, layers can be individually added to any campaign in Roll20. This is something that Roll20 has not always done previously. I think they've finally figured out that this is what people want to do with these and not create like entire new campaigns just to run these things. And I mean, yes, there are ways you can export and import characters and all that, but you shouldn't have to do that. You should instead just be able to add these individually, just any campaign. And because they're so well organized, it just adds this one heading. You'll get literally just what you're showing. Like if you wanted to, let's see, what is this one? Salvage at Lonely Cove. So you would just get this right here, this little section. That's all. That's the only thing it would take up in your entire journal is this little adventure with these 3 headings, and then the bestiary with the creatures that you need to run this adventure. It would show up with the tokens, a GM layer, stuff hidden on there, everything already ready to go in this one map. So it's really, really convenient and well stocked together. I mean, I wish you could purchase them individually or as smaller groups versus the entire bundle, but at least you can add them on individually. In Pro, the bundle also includes all the necessary stat blocks and tokens, including over 50 new creatures from Tome of Beasts 3. My only con with this particular bundle is you have all of these layers, even way more, almost twice as many as the last one, Tome of Beasts 2, and yet only level 1 through 12. That sucks. That just sucks. Like, for those of us that enjoy getting into higher level D&D content, oh well, you're not going to have as much side quest design from these. And surely there are some higher level creatures to use from Tome of Beasts 3 that we would like to show off and use, but for some reason they are not included here. So this is purely basically for tier 1 and tier 2. I guess technically tier 3, maybe the last like 3 adventures would be considered tier 3. So yeah, but I was disappointed to find that there were not too many higher level adventures. Final verdict. Clever, mini, and not so many dungeons with beautiful maps and fun new creatures creates another winning mini-adventure formula in Tome of Beasts 3 Lairs. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel and support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Koa, 1337, Kyle, Matthew, Big Nut, Greenlee, John, and John. And gold patrons, RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fastica, Tortoise, Scott, Stephanie, Rufus, and Carolyn. Thank you all very much for your support.